The Prime Directive basically states that a visiting species to an alien civilization is to prohibit itself from interfering with the internal and natural development of that alien civilization. But of course, the reality is that if a species visits an alien civilization that it did not originate from, there is going to be interference no matter what. So the question isn't, will there be interference? The relevant question is, how can the visiting species to an alien civilization minimize that interference? And I'm here to argue that what this UFO intelligence has done has not been a minimization of their influence upon us, but a maximization. And I hope that's a word. If this alien civilization that is visiting us presumably doesn't originate from Earth, but could, and that would obviously change the argument, but let's assume that it does not originate from Earth, then I think that had it made an appearance a long time ago that was easily documentable and irrefutable, that actually would have influenced our development as a civilization far less than what UFO intelligence has been doing for decades and decades and decades. And the reason for this is quite simple, frankly. When disclosure finally happens, it's going to bring massive humiliation to the world institutions. It is going to put into a spotlight many different kinds of human fallibilities. Obviously, if our world institutions have missed the biggest story of human history for so long, that is an emphasis of human fallibility. And whatever this UFO intelligence is, could have interacted with humanity in a more overt way a long time ago, precluding the humiliation that is going to befall these institutions inevitably. Look at the Roswell event, 1947. It's almost as if this alien civilization knew that by crashing a saucer then, during the throes of the Cold War, that the US government would cover it up. It's almost as if whoever was behind that flying saucer understood the psychology of the American government or any government during that time, perhaps. Certainly, if they crashed in Russia, I think the Russian government would have done the same thing so that the Americans wouldn't know what they just got their hands on. And post-Roswell, the pattern that this UFO intelligence has exhibited has been what appears to be a somewhat of a fine-tuning, if you will. It makes appearances. It allows itself to be seen, often has lights on its machines. Does it need those lights? I don't think so. I think it wants to be seen. In order to create an environment where a great vast amount of human beings recognize that there is this presence that is here, but simultaneously engaging humanity and making its presence known, not up into a point where world institutions will be forced into acknowledging this reality. Now, do you think that's happenstance? You think that's just coincidence? Because you're so committed to the Prime Directive theory that I think stinks? That is manipulation. That is coaxing. That, if you want to be charitable, is guidance to our civilization. Now, it could very easily be said that the crash near Roswell was so profoundly disruptive to the American government that it set the stage, set the tone for all future policies regarding UFO reality, assuming something did crash at Roswell. We don't know for certainty. A lot of people like to say that the crash at Roswell was just an accident, a lightning storm. No matter how advanced the technology is, it's still susceptible to crashing. And that may be true. But I would argue that the way the UFO intelligence has exhibited itself to our civilization for decades contributes to the interpretation that that crash was no accident. It's almost as if whatever intelligence was behind that saucer wanted to influence the American government in a way, promoting excessive secrecy. That's not a prime directive, son. That's manipulation. It's not just the seeming fine-tuning of how, when, and where, and the impact of appearances from UFO intelligence. There is actually a lot of accountings within the UFO historical record over the decades where people don't quite understand why they didn't take their camera out when they saw a UFO, or why they didn't give more attention or significance to having just recently seen a UFO, as if the intelligence is influencing their perception, maybe partially so that there's less documentation of those events. Now, a skeptic would have a field day with this, with these details. But what the skeptic seems to conveniently ignore is, what if what you're studying is thousands of times smarter than you? And why should we not make that assumption if what is visiting us is tens of thousands of years ahead of us? In my estimation, a very likely byproduct of extraordinarily advanced intelligence is that everything they do is more calculated, more thought out, more planned, more strategized. I mean, we're almost certainly talking about a civilization or civilizations that are post-singularity, which means their level of advancement can't even be comprehended by our feeble minds. Why would you not harness the vast array of technologies at your disposal if you have them? We do. We do. If we were visiting another civilization 5,000 years from now that's as primitive as we are now, are you telling me that humanity is not going to use very extraordinarily advanced technology to have some sort of control over the influence we have over that civilization? We're going to leave it up to chance or randomness? I do not think so. All that being said, it is absolutely paramount that you have a grasp, at least to some extent, of what it means to be in a post-singularity civilization. Here is a clip from a February 16th, 2019 video that I did where I explain in some depth what a post-singularity civilization entails. What is technological singularity? According to Wikipedia, the technological singularity is the hypothesis that the invention of artificial superintelligence will abruptly trigger runaway technological growth, resulting in unfathomable changes to human civilization. Now, of course, I'm applying technological singularity to an off-world civilization. Now, to truly understand technological singularity in all its glory, you have to first understand it beyond the creation of artificial superintelligence. What makes technological singularity so incomprehensibly powerful is the compounding technological growth it spurs. According to scientist Ben Goertzel, and this is somewhat paraphrasing something he said from the Joe Rogan podcast number 1211, technological singularity is not just about the development of AI, but also encompasses the advent of nanotechnology, femtotechnology, which is building things from elementary particles, life extension, genetic engineering, mind uploading, which encompasses taking data from your mind and uploading it to a machine, and advanced energy technologies. All these breakthroughs are expected to advance at around the same time, and they have many ways to boost each other. For example, with constantly improving AI, the AI technology can now invent new and better ways of creating nanotechnology and manipulating genetics. Now, if you invent amazing new nanotech and quantum computing, that can make your AI smarter. On the other hand, if you could crack how the human brain works and genetically engineer the mind to upgrade human intelligence, those smarter humans can then make better AI and nanotechnology. There are so many virtuous cycles among these different technologies. The more you advance in any of them, the more you're going to advance in all of them. The paradigm shift has a shifter. Many know these shifters to be UFOs. I call them evolutionary primers. UFO Jesus. And here is an axiom that I coined that I first published in that very same video. Axiom: the more advanced a civilization becomes, the more calculated all of their actions become, and the more adept they become at influencing the future precisely how they want it to be. Now, this is officially my 5th video further elaborating on my alien AI hypothesis, which I admit is mostly or ultimately completely speculation, but it's a fun mental exercise nevertheless. This is the takeaway that I want you to have from my alien AI hypothesis, and I will put a link below to a playlist encompassing all 5 videos if you want to go real deep into this hypothesis that I have produced. The takeaway is this: had alien intelligence abruptly made itself irrefutably known to humanity decades ago, it would have been less disruptive. It would have been less disruptive than getting disclosure 70 plus years after the Roswell incident. And the reason is because of this. In the short term, it's true that if alien intelligence would have abruptly made itself irrefutably acknowledged by the institutions, in the short term, that would have been more abrupt. But it wouldn't have given humanity an opportunity to put all of its myriad fallibilities under a microscope. By engaging humanity the way UFO intelligence has, and having a 70-plus year historical record where the US government and other governments have covered it up, simultaneously the world institutions, which we look up to, which we revere, which are considered the pinnacle of human intelligence, failing to see what's right underneath their noses. Consequently, that development is going to be far more disruptive. So to put this very succinctly, if a month after the Roswell event in 1947, a alien spacecraft landed on the lawn of the White House, only in the short term would that be more disruptive to human civilization. What's happening now, where these civilizations or civilization has allowed institutions to be so wrong about something that's so obvious to so many regular folk, that's going to be ultimately more disruptive because it didn't allow for our institutions to correct course from the very get-go. It permitted, it fostered, it facilitated our institutions to get something so obvious, so wrong over such a long stretch of time. It's that manifestation that is going to teach us so much about ourselves and facilitate better choices going forward. It's going to be disruptive, but it's also going to be potentially the most enlightening and benefiting to our species and to our future. See you in the next episode. Special thanks to all my patrons and YouTube members. If you'd like to support the channel in this way, there's a link for it below. And thank you for everyone watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.